All right. Hello and welcome to Artificially Intelligent, the show where a black musician and a cracker-ass comedian converse.
What'd you call me?
And well, that's the funny thing is I posted that on Facebook last week. I called myself a cracker-ass comedian and the post got deleted. It got censored for hate speech. So yeah, that's where we're at today is even jokingly referring to yourself as a cracker gets you a notification from Facebook saying that you're a bad person. Anyway, that's Barrett Antar Goodwin in Philadelphia. The sun there is going in between clouds, so it's getting darker and lighter, which is neat to watch. My name is Nathan Timmel. I'm the comedian in the flyover state of Iowa. And I wanted to start today. My friend made a post on Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, made a post this morning that I wanted to read to you. And I don't know how far we can go down this path, but I really enjoyed it. And I want to hear your thoughts, and then we can go off and running with many different topics. Here's the post from my friend Mary. Okay, this is really stupid, but I've become fairly obsessed with it. Every time I go to a Facebook post of a news article from a place like CNN that talks about, it's fading out, that talks about some new milestone with COVID or civil rights, you know, anything that elicits the dummies and bigots to post their worst comments, I go to the dumbest and most offensive comics and click on the Facebook profile of the commenter and then go to their likes and see if they like the movie Heaven is for Real. I'm at about a 70% success rate of spotting that as a like on these profiles. I have no idea why I started doing this, but I clicked on a few of them with the crazy comments and noticed they all liked it. And now I'm like, what the fuck? Why do so many pieces of human garbage like this film? Do you know anything about Heaven is for Real?
No.
It came out years ago, like 2014, 15, 13, somewhere in there. It's a film about a little boy who dies and goes to heaven, but comes back, is brought back to life. I don't know the full story. Like he's hit by a car and goes to heaven, but they save him. And then, you know, there's this like, oh, this boy saw heaven, so heaven is for real. And it got maligned by critics who aren't supposed to like movies like that, and loved by audiences who are supposed to, you know, love things like that. But I think it's just a neat, I don't know what you want to call it, bellwether, barometer. The fact that she finds these racist George Floyd had it coming comments, or the Chauvin was innocent. And then you go to their profile and it's like, this movie about Jesus is beautiful. And this is how we should all live and love.
I love your Southern accent.
It's funny that you just automatically go to Southern when you're doing that. It's almost as offensive and wrong as it's a stereotype, like any other stereotype, and yet I slip into it so easily, or most people do. It's wrong. I admit it's wrong, but I went there unconsciously. I didn't even think I should do a Southern accent. I just opened my mouth and out it came.
Because you're racist against Southerners.
Yes, I can't post that on Facebook or I'll get deleted, just like calling myself a cracker. But it is humorous. It's funny. It's amusing. The fact that the Chauvin is innocent comments coincide just right with a love of a movie about a little boy saying heaven is real. I don't know what to make of it. I don't try not to mock it. I don't want to mock it, but I have to. It's just, what are your thoughts just hearing it for the first time?
I don't know. Because there's so many different angles. Because, well, let's clarify. Are you saying that are you saying that she has found out that the people who she finds leave these comments are also Christians?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
They're really into a movie that supports Christians. Yes, that's what is she.
Okay.
She, for the record, is a scientist. So she uses empirical data to draw conclusions. And as I read the post, she's not saying here is a one-to-one correlation. She is saying that, hey, I'm discovering that about 70% of the worst comments you see are made by people that also say they love Jesus, which is fascinating. It's just fascinating. And maybe it goes to something you and I have already talked about, the idea that there's a difference between loving Jesus and emulating Jesus. One is very easy to say, the other is very difficult to do. And again, not to stereotype, but many modern evangelicals, or maybe many evangelicals or Christians throughout time, do more of the former than less of the latter. I think it's the old Gandhi comment. I like your Jesus very much. His followers, however, woof.
Yeah. Well, all right. Oh boy. It's like it's so dense that I just don't even know where to begin
I know.
because
That's why my surface level is to make fun of, because that way you don't have to go beneath the surface and figure out
well,
what's going on.
here's what I will say. Same thing I said um when it was me versus you two atheists. Um, no, I'm kidding. That's not what it was. But like at the end of the day, I really crave that feeling of surrender that one has in the face of their Lord, right? Right.
Yes.
I want to believe because and that's why like I'll use those corny spiritual terms, right? I'm spiritual, not religious, blah blah blah, right? It's nonsense. I hate that term, but it's the best I can do because for me I've studied a bunch of different religions and they all seem to say very similar things. If you want to separate the colloquialisms of each one, they most of the ones I've studied say the same thing, which has led me to believe that it's like through the knowledge I start to question, well, are any of them real or are all of them real? Right? Is it the same message disseminated among a bunch of different places, or is it just the hero's journey mapped out from this culture, this culture, this culture, this culture, right? What is religion real? Is there something greater than us? And I believe that there's probably something greater than us, but you know, I don't know for sure, right? Like maybe when we die, that's it. Like literally, like that's it. Like this,
Or maybe
you
when
know,
we die, we find out.
right. Yeah. And when people go, well, what's it like when you're dead? Well, what was it like before you were born? It's kind of like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're like, oh, right. And it happens every night you go to sleep and you don't remember your dreams. You just somehow magically you sleep, then you wake up the next day and you're magically awake and nothing happened between that. That's probably what it's like. It's probably like that, you know, which sounds terrifying to me ultimately. That like
Really?
we're not terrifying, but it's like it's funny. Katie said this. She said, we're on this planet. We spend a lot more time dead than we do alive, right? And it's true because you'll be alive for the rest of your life and then you'll be dead forever.
I
Right?
thought it was a comment on being dead inside.
No, I mean, well,
Watch too
probably
much
that too.
news, spend too
No,
much
but I
time in front
mean,
of the TV, you're dead
yeah, well,
inside.
that too. But I mean, it leads you to that thought, right? Like, what's the point of this life if when we're dead, we're just dead? Like, what if this is it? Like from a consciousness standpoint, right? Energy cannot be destroyed nor created, blah, blah, blah. So when we die, we just get recycled into something else. And so we go on living through whatever, right? Okay, sure. I get all that. But from a consciousness standpoint, me may not be here, right? I may not get reunited with my high school girlfriend and see my great grandparents and meet all my relatives who came before me every generation. It may not be one big family reunion. This just may be it, right? Like that's it. And if it is, then what are we doing?
Well, hmm, isn't the idea that we get to reconnect after we're dead, or that maybe not that idea? I take that back. I take that back. Isn't the idea that we live beyond this physical being sort of our ego crossing our fingers and saying answering, well, asking a different question of what you are saying? This can't be just it. What if acceptance of, and this is maybe Buddhist, acceptance of the day to day, today, now the moment is what we are here for, and not
Right.
that could be the answer to your question. What is the point of it? To accept the moment.
Right.
I don't know.
And maybe, right, like to realize that, well, I would say yes, accept, but more than that, like realize that each moment can be amazing, right? Like
Mhm.
when we think about some of the songs that we love, right? What what you love about them is they make, for me at least, I won't say what you love about songs, right? I don't know, but like what I love about songs is often that they make the simple profound. They show me the profundity of a simple act, right? Like Glory Days, two old friends sitting around talking about old buddies playing baseball, shit like that. Like it's like, yeah, man, there's something really fun about that sometimes when you bump into your old buddies from high school and you go back a couple of beers. I don't drink beer, but let's pretend,
No,
you throw, you know what I
I,
mean?
I've
Like,
mentioned my idiot Trump friends on here a million times. We still get along when we hang out in person. We get along online 90% of the time. If we're not talking politics, it's absolutely fun to slip
right.
into nostalgia for just a moment
Yeah,
and put it on like a nice warm cloak. Memory,
absolutely.
I
Yeah, it's fun sometimes,
yeah,
and I mean, I think most songs that I love show me something profound and something really simple. And I think that that's kind of when they say, like, live for the now. I think it's that. It's realizing that this moment right here, two friends talking across, a bunch of miles through these modern things is kind of magical. Right? There's
it is.
something amazing about that. That's like, and like understanding that they're right, and that, and to a certain degree, to use hashtag blessed, right? Like how hashtag blessed we are to be, two reasonably healthy dudes living in a pretty cool place. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Like count
sometimes I
your
think about my
blessings,
life and I go, I have not suffered any real tragedy. Sure, I busted my
Yeah,
arm as a kid and almost lost it, but it didn't happen. Sure, I spent 6 weeks in a cast on my leg, but my leg is still here. Sure, I got dumped and heartbroken, but like if I think about all the quote bad things that happened to me, they weren't really that bad in retrospect. I've never suffered real tragedy. So yeah, life,
right.
if anything that I want to complain about, there's a thing called perspective. Someone out there,
Yeah,
oh, I'm about to say something horrible. As you and I are right here sitting and speaking and having a nice conversation, and I'm like, wow, I've known Barrett for so many years. He's such a good friend. I like him. Someone's getting murdered right now.
right.
I mean, there's horror happening. There's a
Or
child getting abused right now.
right.
And
Or they're just two friends like you and I who've been friends who have a horrible fight and that's it. And they're not friends anymore. Or
yeah, it doesn't
they
have to
could
be
be
as horrible as
something,
murder like I just went
right?
to, but yeah,
Right.
there's
I mean, it could be something so simple, like these little things that we take for granted. And I think it's the idea is not to take your life for granted. I
yes.
think that's the idea, is don't take life for granted. Like understand that every moment is a gift and to use it to its fullest, which ties back to your initial story.
I was wondering how we were going to get back
I
there.
know
Good
it's
job.
pretty fascinating, right? What I don't understand about people is if you believe in, let's say when we say heaven is real, they're talking very much about Christian heaven. That's what they're talking about,
Yes.
right? Angels and halos and shit, right? If you actually believe in that God and you've read New Testament version of that God, Old Testament God, I get why they would be these assholes, right? Because I'm say that a
Book of
little tongue
Job,
in,
pretty harsh
yeah.
there.
I mean, I say it a little tongue in cheek, but Old Testament God was not always so nice. You
I
know what I
believe
mean?
the word is vindictive.
Yeah, like yeah, he had an axe to grind. It seemed, but New Testament God post Jesus, that cat's pretty cool, And so, if those are the words that you follow and those are the words that you read, then even if you thought Derek,
Chauvin.
Derek Chauvin was innocent and George Floyd was guilty, your thought would be, it's a shame that someone died. That's really horrible that this person died. I hate that he put himself in a position in which the law had to come down on him like that. Right? You might even say that. But there seems to be no compassion. There seems to be an us versus them. And to me, when I think of the words of Jesus, there is no us versus them. No, there's none. There's definitely times where he draws a line occasionally, but most of his stuff that we talk about is not that.
Well, I have
You know?
two thoughts. I had one, and then you start, and this is me making a judgment call, and I'll be a judgmental asshole. It's interesting to me that wherever Jesus seems to draw a line, people that say they love him tend to end up on the wrong side of it, is what I notice. And I've made this snarky remark a million times to people like say a Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley, or especially a Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich, where I'll say Mike Huckabee, where they'll say something completely outrageous and hateful. And my response is, if you really believe in Christianity, I think you're going to find it interesting when you stand before St. Peter and he looks at the list and says, you? No, not you. The other thought I had was, and I'm going to need help with this because I am not advocating sitting back and doing nothing. Oh, now I've got two thoughts in my head again. So when I went to Kuwait for the first time, one thing the military told me is they're really actively trying to, I want to say, retrain part of the mindset over there, because I believe the word is inshallah, God's will. Are you familiar? God wills it so. It's big in the Islamic community. It's very peaceful. It can be very peaceful. It's like, well, I lost my son to cancer. It's very sad, but it's God's will. That is a good aspect of it. The bad aspect is, oh, I'm going to get in a car. I'm going to get in a car, but not put on a seatbelt because if I get in an accident, God's will. So
Right.
there are extremes to everything. And I'm not saying go to the extreme of not fighting, but when I think of people that supposedly believe, I think of topics like, say, abortion or homosexuality, where there's a segment on the right that gets so angry and saying, we're fighting for babies, or Bible says gay is bad. And my thought is, if you really believe God is in control and has everything taken care of, your position would be, well, I really think abortion's wrong, and you're probably going to suffer after you die. And but you don't need to go out and protest and hurl insults at women who are having a horrible day already and making a terribly difficult decision. And you don't need to convert someone that was born biologically one way or another, if that makes sense. So it's a weird gray area of, yes, wear your seatbelt, but also have empathy when it doesn't go the way you believe. There should be a
Yeah.
trust in that higher power that I believe it's all going to get taken care of in the end. So I'm not going to get stuck with the details, although
Yeah.
putting on a seatbelt is a detail. So I'm all over the place, and I admit that it's complex.
Well, it's that pray to Allah, but tie up your camel. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Right. Like,
exactly.
sure. Like, right. Yeah. I mean, pray,
Oh,
but
and that goes back to what you said much earlier about all the religions. I think one thing, and you and I have talked about this, we talked about it with our atheist friend Andrew, who I'm going to try and get on again.
yes.
Talk to him about it. I'll talk to you after the show ends, about the idea people tend to forget that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all worship the same God. It's just different paths to get there. A lot of people in America, and I would assume a lot of Muslims, think that Christians and Jews and they all worship a different God. But when you sit down and say, it's like, no, it's the same God.
Here's the thing. I know Jews. I know Jews. I
It
know
sounds like a great
Muslims.
spoken word album. You just sit down and like, I know Jews.
Well, I know lots of Jewish people. I know lots of Muslim people. I know lots of Christian people. In my whole memory, here's what I can say. I've heard Muslims reference Jesus many times.
As he plays a big figure in the Quran.
Right. He's not the savior. He's not, but he is a great prophet.
Yes.
I've heard them talk about Moses. I've heard them talk about all kinds of people from the Abrahamic faiths, right? I have not ever heard anyone from the Judeo-Christian side of that talk about the Muslim stuff in any way with reverence. Not with reverence, but having anything to. I've heard people talk about it with reverence, right? I've heard many Jewish people who read Rumi and memorize. You know what I mean? Like, so I know plenty of Jewish people who have completely embraced deep Muslim spirituality. I don't know that they have. When I hear them speak about it, I don't know that they've made the connection between the two of them. I don't actually even know what the connection is. So I don't know that. I know that there is one, but I don't actually even know what it is to even talk about it. Like with like maybe there's nothing wrong with them not doing it because the connections are just so fractured for so many years that they are different at this point, right? So maybe there's no point in it, even if they're all birthed from the same thing. It's like, mom can have, family can have 3 kids, and those 3 kids be radically different from each other, even
Right.
if they all grew up in the same household. When they're all, when there are their great 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 grandchildren now still, right, like supposed to know about each other and talk about each other. So maybe there's nothing wrong with the fact that they don't do it because it's just so far removed. But maybe there is. I don't know
Well,
enough about it to say one way or the other.
my thought, and I love it when someone is able to take a thought that I cannot verbalize or express and do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me so happy. And like the movie Defending Your Life, I remember seeing that and going, that makes sense. Okay, that's what I believe. That's what I've been trying to. And another thing that did that for me was the Book of Mormon, the musical.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it twice. And have you seen it?
No.
How familiar with you are?
Enough. I heard
Okay.
it's.
So
I know
anybody
enough
that's not
about
here,
it.
I'll just give here are the Cliff Notes versions. Mormon missionaries, and again, Mormonism, another branch of the Christian, like it takes the idea of Jesus and puts a twist on it. And I think that people make fun of Mormonism is it's so recent as opposed to Islam, Christianity, and those are so ancient that the origins might get a little muddled. With Mormonism, you can literally point to a day and time and go, "Oh, he made that shit up. This is just come on, let's be serious here." But the thing is, the musical takes Mormon missionaries that go to Uganda, like Lion King. Anyway, and over the course of the musical, they realize that their version of Mormonism doesn't really apply to these people in Africa. So one of the missionaries tweaks things just a little to try and get the people he's trying to convert to come to his way of thinking. And at the end, they've created a new religion, a branch of Mormonism that's not the Book of Mormon, it's the Book of Arnold, one of the characters. And that to me is all religion. Judaism came from what, old African folklore and possibly Egyptian, I forget. Then Christianity built on that. It's the
Wow.
idea that every so often someone comes along and goes, "Hey, I really like your foundation there. I am just going to tweak it a little bit," and that's what they all are. Is they're
I
just
mean,
tweaks or
oh man, you can see you're just gonna get us in trouble
how so? I didn't
because,
insult anybody there except
well,
Mormons, and they have
but
to forgive
like,
me because they're so goddamn nice.
they're like Canadians.
See, you know Jews and Muslims. I know Mormons. Oh, I know some super sweet, lovable Mormons. I love those guys. I love you,
Yeah.
Mormons. I think what you believe is kind of silly, but I love you.
Well, Moses was abandoned as a child, right? Not abandoned. They were coming to kill everybody. So
Is he
his
the one put in the
mama
reef basket?
put in the basket,
Okay.
floated around the river, raised in the house of the Pharaoh. Like literally raised in the house of the Pharaoh.
Yes.
which in those times would have made him ultimately basically a Kemetic priest to a degree. Like he would have had all the spiritual teachings and all the other stuff. And then when he goes up on the mountain and he comes back down with his 10 little things, right? These commandments. If you look at
Not a
them,
single one of which is loving or peaceful. It's a
right. Oh,
aren't
yeah.
like 6 or 8 of them. Hey, worship me and don't covet thy neighbor's wife and don't murder. But
Right. Yeah.
most of
I
them are
mean,
nobody else but me. I'm God. Anyway, sorry I interrupted you.
well, but what's interesting is that there's something called the 42 Oracles of Ma'at, I believe. And it's Ma'at is it basically balance in Kemet in Egypt, right? And so you have this thing. Uh, Essentially, it's a. I don't know how else to explain it. Anyway, it's so there's these 42 rules that you have to follow. The 10 Commandments are directly taken, not taken out of there, but instead of 42, there's 10, and they're each, I believe, found inside of these things. So to say that there's a connection between Judaism and Africa, if Egypt is part of Africa, then yes. If we're going to count Egypt as its own separate thing and having nothing to do with Africa, then it doesn't. But there's a direct
I'm having
connection.
horrible thoughts. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what you're saying, you, not me, I'm not saying this, you are, is that Moses said, 42 is a lot to memorize. Let's see if I can get some of the dumbest fuckers here to follow me by only making them memorize 10 things.
Okay,
I will
that's
take
not
the
at all
10
what I said.
simplest dipshits. No, 42 is too complex for you guys. Here's 10. And
See,
that's what Christianity, or is it Judaism, is based off of,
that's
is
not at all what
an
I said.
inability to memorize.
What I said is that there's a high likelihood that that in these Abrahamic religions, there's a lot of connection
Yes.
to the folklore of the time. What we call mythology is other people's religion.
Yes.
My question is, in 5,000 years, are they going to call this American mythology? Right?
Yeah.
Or are they going to
Or
call
in
this
5,000 years, will Scientology be number one? I
right?
mean, people think it's
I
absurd to
mean,
say right now, but think about all the religions that have gone to the
mm,
wayside. I mean, how long was Odin and Thor? Like people think Thor is a character from Marvel Comics. No, no, he was worshipped. Odin was
right,
a,
like
like
right, like that wasn't mythology. That was religion to them, and they
yes,
believe
that
that
was.
as much as arguably more than we believe what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like they arguably believed it more than we do, more deeply. They really believe that stuff. Now, most people don't really believe it. They just aren't sure. So they go to church to hedge their bets just because they're not convinced one way or
Right.
the other. But which leads me to another thing completely, right? QAnon and all this other kind of stuff. And not even QAnon, anything like it's not just the cuckoos on the right, it's the cuckoos on the left too who believe equally ridiculous shit, right? Just we maybe there's a name for it, not
AOC
QAnon,
supporters.
right? See, now that you said, I surely didn't say that. I like AOC. I
I
think she
got nothing against her. I just, well, I got little things against her. I like her, but I don't.
oh,
I like her, but I don't put her up on a pedestal and worship her like a golden god. She is not my Trump. There are people out there that treat AOC just like Trump supporters uh, worship Trump. That's why I took the stab because I want to be balanced. I want to poke fun at the left and the right.
totally different train of thought, but arguably I think they like them for the same reason.
No, I agree. Yeah,
You know what
it's
I mean? Like they both, to the people for whom they speak for and speak to, they speak the truth.
yeah,
And they're not
absolutely.
afraid to,
They're
and they're not afraid to confront the machine and speak the truth. They just
well.
have two different versions of it. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not sure that Trump confronted the machine so much as told everybody that's what he wanted to do and then used the machine to enrich himself. But that's only proven by facts.
Yeah, those pesky things. Well, these are alternative facts.
Yes.
I remember when that first came out, when she said that. Well, these are alternative facts.
Yep.
I love that.
Whereas AOC, where I don't agree with her, she still seems genuine. Like she
Absolutely.
does seem that
Yeah.
she is fighting for a not her good, but the common good. And I believe that
Absolutely.
is the main and biggest
Absolutely.
difference between the two. But so QAnon people and
Right.
where I
Okay. Right.
sidetracked you with my shitty comment,
So
as I tend to do.
I feel like there's a need for religion. And because there's a need for religion, like I think, like we're innately wired for language. We're pre-wired for language, right? We just are, right? You're not pre-wired for English, but you're pre-wired for language, which is why you're like
Yeah.
a sponge as a kid. You can just learn a language just by sitting around listening to people talk it. You magically learn it, right?
My
That's how
wife's
it's just,
boss's kid just speaks Turkish and English because
yeah.
English, American mother, Turkish father. And so when he was a baby, mom would speak English to him. Dad only spoke Turkish. Dad speaks great English. So you wouldn't know. And so the kid just grew up like, oh, this is how I talk, and now just boom, completely
Right.
bilingual because, like you said,
Absolutely. Yeah.
sponge, just
Yeah.
wired
They're
to
just,
respond.
you're pre-wired for language,
Yep.
right? Any language it is, right? You're just pre-wired for it. And we're probably pre-wired for a lot of things, right? Because we are not blank slates per se, but we have to learn how to be human, right? Right. A deer is born knowing how to be a deer, right? Like if you just took a deer and you somehow, like Bambi, ran off with its parents and left it to its own devices, it would know, okay, eat this, run from this. These are people I chill with. This is where I shit. This is where I sleep.
Yeah.
This
I
is
mean, that's
what I do. Like
how
they're
many
just,
animals can walk after an hour or less than a day.
yeah, like
Yeah.
right, like, but we are not like that. Like we have to figure out how to be us, and we have to learn it, and a lot of it is cultural, right? But so I think we're pre-wired for community. But I also think, and I have no proof of this, but I believe we're pre-wired for some kind of religion thing. I don't know why, but I think it's tied into community, maybe, or something. And I have no proof of this. It's a thought, not a fact, obviously. But I really believe that we're pre wired for it in the death of God, because there is no God. God is money and power. That's what God is. That's why Trump got elected, because our God is not this loving God. Our God is one that says, if I love you, you will be born, you will look like this, you have this much money, and everybody will love you. That's what somehow modern God is saying to people. That's the message that they're getting,
Yeah.
right? And so in that place, Trump becomes like the savior in a weird way, but also
Well,
things
he allows
like,
people, he's the voice for people that had hidden thoughts like, well, this Jesus guy is fine, but I really like my house. And then
right.
someone comes along and gives power to that thought. And you're like, oh, okay, now it's acceptable to say what I've been thinking.
Right. Absolutely. And with that, you need some kind of religion. And I think QAnon takes the place of what religion is like, because if you look at, like, again, because what, to go back to what you were originally talking about, not that QAnon takes the place of religion, but like religion, the conservative church is like a breeding ground for that white supremacist stuff, in the same way that people target mosques for for like terrorist activities and shit. This person
Right.
has connections to Al Qaeda and blah blah blah. It's like the conservative Christian church is the same thing, right?
Well, I think there is a difference, and I'm going to do a bad job articulating it, but stay with me. I think we've talked about this, but if not, have you seen the documentary Behind the Curve? It's about the flat earthers. It's on Netflix.
Mm-mm.
I really enjoy it. I recommend it. What's funny is at 2 or at least 3 points in the documentary, the flat earthers prove to themselves that the earth is round, and then they immediately dismiss it. They're like, we're going to set this experiment up and it will prove the earth is flat. And then it doesn't work. They're like, oh, well, we need to do this now. Like they keep, but what the documentary does is it sort of, I don't want to say it explains loneliness, but it does explain what you mentioned, the sense of community. You have a group of people who, in my eyes and your eyes and the eyes of a sane person, believe completely outlandish things, but in that room, they fit in because they all believe the same thing. And there's a moment where a physicist or an astrophysicist is at a group meeting with other really smart Harvard type big brains, and he said, "Hey, I know we think we're all funny for looking down on these people for being stupid, but we're not going to reach them by making fun of them. We have to dialogue with them. We have to talk." And it's a really neat moment. And one more thought in my head, and I know I'm being inarticulate, is I get it because we've talked about this before. I've been there. When I was in high school and listening to Slayer and heavy metal and thrash metal, that was my QAnon. That was my flat earth society. I felt alienated from the outside world because they were dressing a certain way or thinking a certain way or talking a certain way. So when I found heavy metal people, I fit in. And they use this explanation when it comes to gangs in any situation, the Proud Boys or the inner city. When they say someone wants to fit in and the family isn't there for them, the gang will say, "Come here, got your back." And that's, to me, that's all really what QAnon is, or is it's just another version of a sense of community. That's what I've heard. I listened to a 6-part podcast on QAnon, and that's what a lot of it was. There's also an idea that they presented very gently. They didn't want to make fun of people, but if you like, I have friends that are into conspiracy theories, and it's really sad because some of them are really stupid. Not the friends, well, they are too, but the conspiracy theories. Um, it's the idea that you have inside information that no one else has. Everybody believes that they're just walking around, living a free life. But I know that the government's putting chemtrails into the sky and controlling our brains. I'm one of the good ones. There's something to be said for thinking you have inside information, and so that feeds into it as well. So I'm not sure. Everything you were saying made me think of an opposing point of view. And that is, I think, more of what it is: a sense of community and inside
I mean,
information.
I think
And
that
the scary thing about QAnon, to finish what I'm saying by going off your last words, are studies and researchers are showing that as QAnon has fallen apart, white supremacy groups have tried to step in and fill the void. Hey, that pizza parlor baby eating pedophile ring didn't work out for you. Come here, I got some news for you. Black people are trying to take your freedom. And they're recruiting directly from QAnon as it dissolves. It's scary.
absolutely. I mean, here's what I will say. I believe that we're kind of saying the same thing in different ways.
Okay.
I think that hold on. Let me get back to this because I have a thought that popped up while you were talking. I don't want
Sure.
to forget it. I think that when we look back at the 60s and Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles and Eric Clapton, the Who, whatever, Stones, we look back at this time, right? And they were kids, they were children,
Yep.
like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Like Jimmy died at 27. His career was about 5 years long, 4 or 5 years long. That means he started when he was like a kid. But already by the time he was that old, he'd already gone over and served in the army, jumped out of airplanes, did a bunch of stuff. Like, and back then, 18 wasn't the same as 18 when you and I were 18, and it surely wasn't the same as 18 today, right? Because when you're talking about gangs and high school and all this stuff, it's like, yeah, in high school, we're craving to fit in and all this other stuff. But by the
Absolutely.
time you get to college or out of there, you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need that in that way. You do still need it, but it's not the same because you've grown up some, I think.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but I'll just say this really quick and then you can digest it and go with it. Isn't
Mm-hmm.
it the same but different today, where the craving to fit in is, I want to be an Instagram star, I want to be a YouTube star? It's just moved from high school to, if I'm not popular in high school, I can be popular out there. There's still a desire to fit
Yes.
in, but it's an
Yes.
online community, hence QAnon and the web made it much easier for white supremacists to find one another. You used to have to know a secret handshake. Now you just Google. So,
but what's weird about it is that like it all made sense to me in my teens and 20s. Right? Like, listen, again, you want to ask black people why they believe in chemtrails? It's because of the Tuskegee experiments, right? Because it's like because the shit happened.
I want to
like,
ask black people, what's up with menthols? What's wrong with regular
right,
cigarettes?
exactly. But you know what I mean? Like there are legitimate reasons why black people distrust government or
Yeah.
police or this or that. These are not things that are made up. This is like real shit. So there's real reasons for it. So in my 20s, I could go down crazy conspiracy theory things because the stuff I was learning about Black history, I was like, good Lord, this stuff really happens. And so, like, you're like, oh, right. Like, they lied about it and lied about it. And 20 years later, it came out. Then they lied about it and lied about it. And 20 years later, it came out.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what else are they lying about? Well, probably everything. And there probably are UFOs. And surprise, surprise, now what are they talking about? All over the place. Pentagon revealing that there really are UFOs.
We have photos.
Right. Like, it's like, right. Like,
and it's not Earl that got picked up out of his truck. I'm going
right.
Southern accent again. It's not Earl. It's they put something up my butt. It's like Navy pilots that are professionals and going, Houston, I don't know what the fuck that is.
Right. Like that's like real shit, right? So like they've been lying to us about that for what? Ever?
Yeah.
Right? Like I mean, so like there's reasons why people distrust, right? But when you get out of your like mid-20s, you know what I mean? Like as you start like, seeing 30 in the distance and realizing you're not going to be part of the 27 club because you're you know what I mean? Because you're just gonna unless you kill yourself, you're not going to make it to the 27 club. And if you did, nobody would care.
Right. That's the big thing. Oh, sure. I can go out at 27, but I ain't Cobain.
Right. Like no one's going to give a shit. Right. You're like, oh,
did
fuck.
Janis go at 27 too? Isn't there a thing like Hendrix, Cobain, Janis?
Yeah. Oh my God. Tons. Yeah.
Was it Jesus or did Jesus make it to 32 or 33?
He was 33.
33. Okay.
But right. And that was the next number everybody wants to hit if they know that.
Right.
Right. but by the time you start realizing that you might actually live to 30, I feel like something happens just naturally and you just stop. It's not even that you stop believing in conspiracies, you stop caring. Right? Like you just stop caring about it. It's like you just but I think like it's not even that like it's like okay, well, sure. Do I have a lot of questions about vaccines? Sure. So let me just do my research on this vaccine and I'll see if I want to take it or not. Right? Like whatever it is, like you start to balance your foolish beliefs with things that are real. Like you start to find a way to blend the two things together in a way that makes sense, right? Like even like we didn't even talk about racism shit. Is racism real? Yes. Do I think it's yes, but I also think that most of it is internal. It's the ways I've been trained to think. So it's on me to figure that shit out, right? But and I believe it's wrong and all this stuff. But yeah, and I believe that maybe cops have a unnatural fear of black people. I don't have to like it, but it means that if I get pulled over 10 and 2, shit up on the dashboard. You know what I mean? Like you just learn to balance. Is it right that I have to do that? No. Like you balance what is right and what is practical. You know what I mean? Somehow the two things you find a balance between that. You know what I mean? Like you pick your battles and like fighting chemtrails isn't my battle. And I don't understand with all the QAnon stuff like that. But I think that what has happened is like this is the whole point of all this. Like if you're wondering,
no, because I have a thought that I'm desperately trying to hold on to, so I don't interrupt you.
I'll tell you my point real quick. My point is that I feel like the average age of maturity has gone from like 15, like 13 or 14 for our grandparents to like 20 something for our parents to like by the time you and I were coming of age, maybe like 30 was where you're expected to be an adult. And now it's like, I think that there's like adolescence. Like we just don't ever grow up, right? Like grown ass men play video games all day long, not just for fun every now and then, all day long. Like, and right. And is it fun? Like, dude,
I only play Grand Theft Auto. That's the only game I play. And when I met Lydia, she was kind of worried. She's like, he's an adult and he has a gaming system. I'm like, I only play that one. And she talked to my mom and my mom said, oh, every guy that's in my office that's in his 30s, they
Right.
play and they get on the things, with and they talk to one, and Liddy's like, oh, okay, at least he's not that bad. But yeah, you're right. I never thought of it before, but you are absolutely right. The maturity age keeps getting pushed back, and you
Right.
don't have to grow up as fast, and that has its
Yeah.
pros and its
Which
cons.
means you're likely to join a gang at 34.
A
Right.
proud boy.
Like,
That's when you
right.
become a proud
Like
boy,
what
or a Trump
fucking,
supporter, a
you know what I
MAGA.
mean?
Yeah.
Right, but like
But
what 34-year-old goes, I think I want to join the Crips now. I'm
right.
34 years old. I've never had anything to do with this, but now I need a sense of belonging. So I'm gonna go join the Crips at 34, like, or 44 or 65.
Well,
Like, are you fucking kidding me?
let me
Like,
tie it
what
into
the
the
fuck?
thought that I had while you were speaking, and I'm not sure the connection. Maybe you can help me with it. What about the best show ever, at least the first couple seasons, Arrested Development, where now we have
What a
adults
great
that,
show.
what's that?
What a great show.
Oh, I
God,
mean,
that show
I
is so
I
good.
tried watching the new season and I just can't, because
No.
it came out of the gate so quick. But anyway, when I say Arrested Development, what I mean is, I think I'm using the term wrong, incorrectly. What you and I talked about much earlier, maybe too much love for nostalgia, because I tend to notice
Hmm.
that my same friends that believe stupid shit are also the same ones that didn't really move anywhere after school. They stayed in the same community, but more often than not, they also kind of listen to the same music and do the same things, where sure, I can throw on a Slayer tune and go, "Oh yeah, I remember Slayer." But they will ask me, "Hey, you want to go see Slayer live?" And this was like 5 years ago, before Slayer broke up, or any heavy metal band from high school, any single, pick one. And they'll say, "Do you want to go see him?" And I'm like, will they sign a contract that says they're not playing anything after 1988? Like, I don't want to hear anything from Metallica in the 90s or 2000s. I just don't. If I'm
Oh,
gonna go, I grew out of it, and that sounds insulting to the band, but
but that
I
music
just,
wasn't made for grown-ups.
right. Well,
That music wasn't
I
made for
shifted in my
adults.
taste. So when I guess when I say, like, I don't understand how anybody, for the most part, can be as passionate. Not no, I take that back. Let me retract that statement. There's nothing wrong with liking the music you liked in high school, but a lot of the people I'm talking about don't develop new likes and tastes. Whereas I can go back and listen to a song or two,
Uh,
or even early U2, which I think holds up. But I'm also discovering along the way new music. Like, I will admit this right here. You heard it on the podcast. There is some K-pop I really enjoy.
oh,
The
I've got a
Korean
funny
pop
story to tell
music.
you.
What's that?
I got to remind. All right, I want to make 2 points.
I'm just saying that,
Um,
yeah, to grow and
but
develop as people, you
no,
have to
no,
change. You have to change.
yeah. I mean, all right, I have a funny story to tell you about that. Remind me about the K-pop thing in a second. Um, Friend of mine, she's a handful of years older than we are, so which makes her like in her late 30s.
I was gonna
And
say, or dead. She have a cane and a walker.
right. But she won tickets to the Cure. This is about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. She won tickets to the Cure. So she asked me if
Did you
I
see
would
them get
go.
inducted into the Hall of Fame?
No.
It's interesting. I'll put it that way. The table of their friends and family is like, all righty then. Anyway, go ahead.
So she won these tickets, like on some radio show or something. So we went. She asked me if I'd go with her, and I said, sure. And we left halfway through.
Hmm.
She's like, yeah, this is a lot more fun in high school.
Yeah,
And
when
she
you were
was like,
connected to,
right,
I'm,
like when those feelings made sense.
yeah,
Like that
and
music
those
wasn't made
feelings are
for adults.
slightly emo.
Right. That's not made for, I mean, it doesn't mean that like as a 35-year-old person, you can't get something out of it. But I don't think that's the demographic. Like, I think it's okay if you like Taylor Swift when you're 13 and even when you're 22. But if you're 50 and you're a Swifty, right? That's
I'm not a
maybe
Swifty,
that's
but
not weird.
I
Like,
really like Taylor Swift. She has
I
some
mean,
catchy
but
goddamn
that's the
tunes.
funny thing, right? But it's not like the music was made for you, which
Right.
leads me to my. So then I have another point, and then I'll get back to Taylor Swift because that's
Okay, let
actually
me quick interrupt. Same
yes.
thing about you and the Cure. When Kiss went on the reunion tour in 1997, all four members, I went. I was so excited, like, oh my God, Kiss, the original four members. I was ready to leave after 3 songs. The lights went down, and I'm like, I'm 6 years old again. And then they started playing, and I was like, and then I would look around at the people that were all cheering, and I'm like, it's kind of contrived and boring. You know, like I've gotten past that. Now I can kind of watch Kiss and like, okay, now but yeah, I'm not a Swiftie. I'm not in the Kiss army. I enjoy them for what they are, but the fanaticism is gone. Okay, so it's Swifties and whatever other point.
So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we're talking about something about high school came up, and he said, high school was the best, man. Like, God, I loved high school. That was the best. And then he let it go. And I was like, right. Because for him, high school was an amazing time, but it wasn't where he peaked. It was just where he had the most fun.
Didn't Al Bundy.
Right. And I think for many people, they associate where they had the most fun with where they peaked. And they're not the same thing. And I don't know that for a fact.
No. It's the Hard Times, the Robin Williams, Kurt Russell movie, as I just said. What did I just say a second before that? Peak in high school. I don't know. Yeah, it's what you said earlier. It's glory days. You reminisce, but you move on.
Yeah, right. And he lives a great life. He's still going for his stuff and doing everything he wants to do. But high school was an amazing time, and it really was for him in that
Al
way.
Bundy was the other reference I made that I just forgotten. Yeah,
absolutely. So I was thinking about all this stuff about like how I don't like I'm getting over like think about what people think, right?
Yeah.
Like not living my life in a way about what people think about me, and do like kind of just live for me and be free to do what I want to do regardless of what I think other people are thinking, because I can read their minds, of course, right? And so I thought I was doing really well with all this, right? I thought I was doing great with this, like I really did. Like I thought I'd made massive headway, right? So Katie says the other day, Taylor Swift's album, she re-recorded it and it's great. It's like, she said, it's fantastic. Like she said, it doesn't, she goes, it doesn't have like the fire of like, 20 years ago, because she's a grown woman now, right? But like, it doesn't mean that like she didn't kill it this time around too, right? And I was like, oh, no, Katie's not a massive Taylor Swift fan. She liked her when she was like a little girl, like a little kid. She still likes her enough. She thinks she's a brilliant songwriter, and she's a great songwriter, right? But she said that, and I said, oh, I should go listen to that. I should check it out. And I said, wait a minute. People follow me on Spotify. People will see that Taylor Swift was the last thing I listened to. That. And that's how I realized I wasn't.
You're not like, over it.
I'm not over it.
Yep.
I thought that was a really funny way to learn a lesson.
And then did you go listen to Taylor Swift just to put it out there? Like, okay, I'm going to do this just to challenge myself.
I didn't, but I should.
Oh.
but it's a funny shit. Like, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Indeed, she does. All right. Well, did we solve anything today? Did we figure out why people hate George Floyd and like Heaven is for Real, or anything else? It's
amazing that's where it started. That's where it started, and it ended up at Taylor Swift.
And I had like when we talked off air, I said, hey, I've got a couple ideas that I want to talk about. I said, I didn't talk about a single goddamn one of them, which is good. I like that. It's better. I think freeform can be better than strictly regimented at times.
Absolutely. It's some fun shit. We should try to stay on one topic for one whole episode. Let's try. Next week, let's make a pact.
All right.
All right. We'll pinky swear there.
All right. Well, you, my friend, we were a little not late getting started, but because our time is fluid, but you had to read a contract this morning. How goes it with, ladies and gentlemen, the Katie Henry Band, katiehenrymusic.com, and then Barrett is at antargoodwin.com. How goes it with the
Ah,
entering the studio phase of things?
things are great. We're going in on Tuesday.
That is awesome.
I
All
know,
right.
dude. I'm so excited.
The last album was High Road. And then, as I
Hmm.
said, katiehenrymusic.com. And anything you want to push or just want to hang back,
Oh,
anything online?
I'm gonna chill for a minute and
All right.
let's just see what happens. But I'm so excited.
I have exciting news. Um, I have a book out, and you would know that when you put out a book or an album or anything, the first thing you do is tell all your friends, like, hey, support me, support me, support me. I have started not only I've started having reviews, very positive reviews pop up on Amazon, quite a few of them, of people I have no clue who they are. So it's like, oh, good. Like, it's not just, oh, my son wrote the best book in the world. It's so that was really neat. And I've gotten a handful of emails from people through my website that said, hey, I read your book and I really like, and it's like, that's pretty cool to me, is that like
Yeah.
strangers are liking it and commenting, because it's hopefully piercing that bubble of the insular, okay, expand from your friend base and that. So the book
Hmm.
is called We Are 100. It's available on Amazon, and please buy it, and I hope you like it, and if you do, say nice things and tell your friends and family.
It is really good.
Thank you.
Again, it sounds silly. It's like, like telling your kid, you're really cute and people will love you one day. It's like, all right, whatever. Like, but like it really is good. Not just because you're my man, like because it's really good. You know what I mean? Like it's good
All
shit.
right. Well, nathantimmel.com is where you can look for me and the book. And there you go, everyone. Thanks for
Yeah.
tuning in. And next week, one topic.
That's it.
I swear, one topic. All right. Thanks for watching, listening,
Yeah.
whatever.